Okay, adding decimals and integers. Decimals, we know what those are. Integers, just remember, are positive and negative. And decimals can be positive or negative as well. But when we talk about integers, those are positive and negative whole numbers. Okay, so when we add two numbers whose signs are the same, and this should just be a review from grade 8, whose signs are the same, we keep the sign, so we keep that sign, and we add the two numbers together. I'm a big fan of highlighters. If you don't enjoy them, that's okay too. And we know that the act of adding, we refer to that as the sum. So if I say sum these two numbers, that means we're going to go ahead and add them. All right, so here's two numbers right here. They're both positive. We can go ahead and add those together. I like to stack my numbers. I have a hard time seeing it like this. Some of you are going to be totally okay with that. I like to put my numbers and I like to stack them. Oops, that should be a 1. That should be a number 1. This is a number 4. I like to stack them. I like to line the decimal places up. It just helps my brain see it better. So there's my decimal place. So 1 plus 4 is 5. 3 plus 7 is 10. So I'm going to put my 0 here. I'm going to carry my 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So 20.5. That's the way I like to do it. Some of you will be able to see it and you can see it in your head and it's no big deal. 7 plus 13 is 20, easy peasy. 4 plus 1 is 0.5. But if you're like me and you need to see it visually, sometimes stacking them is a better way to see them. And again, I'm just going to remind you guys that you need to try it in order to see if you know what you're doing. Does everybody have their note package? Does anybody need a note package? Need some notes? Everybody else have it? Are we all good? Nobody forgot theirs at home? All right. So now when we add two numbers whose signs are different. So when the signs are different, we keep the sign of the number that is farthest from 0, sign number farthest from 0, and subtract the smaller number from the bigger number. So we're adding, but really we're subtracting. Okay, so which number is bigger? Or which number is further away from 0? 10.4 or 13.4? If we were to put these on a number line, 0 right in the middle, maybe negative 10.4 is here, 13.4 is here. This one's 3 more units away. So this one is a positive number, so I know my answer is going to be positive. So my answer will be positive. Then if you like to stack them, and your calculator will do this for you as well, but it's good to know how to do it without a calculator as too, because that is important. So we take the smaller number away from the bigger number. It becomes a subtraction question. Like I said, I like to stack them on top of each other. 4 minus 4 is 0. 0 from 3 is 3, and 1 minus 1 is 0. And we know our answer will be positive. So my answer is going to be a positive 3. Some of you, grab a smaller calculator, turn it on, that would be handy. So if you have your calculators here, some of you might have a negative button on your calculator. This big calculator makes me use a negative button. It won't let me use my subtract button. This one has my negative button is down here. It's usually a negative sign in the brackets. I'll show you what happens when I try to do it on my big calculator. if I say subtract 10.4 plus 13.4, because that is what this is saying. So I use the subtract button. Oh, and it did it for me this time because it put it in as a negative. So you want to get into the habit of using your negative button. Negative 10.4 plus 13.4. So I'd put it in my calculator the exact same way I'd see it on the paper, and then I hit my equal sign, and it gives me an answer of 3, which is the exact same thing we did as well. So you can totally use your calculators. Don't be afraid to use those. Okay, so number 4 here. Which one's further away from 0? 18 or 3? 18. So I know that my answer will be negative this time because my 18 is further away from 0. So then I'm going to take my 18.4 and subtract 3.7. Oh, I get to borrow some stuff this time. Hopefully you guys are comfortable with this. I can't take 7 things away from 4 things, so I have to borrow a 10 from here. 7 from 14 is 7. 3 from 7 is 4. There's a 0 right there. So that's 1. So my answer is going to be negative 14.7. So don't forget your negative sign. That's the most important thing. Or did I need to write that this was positive 3, writing it with a plus sign in front of it? No, I don't need to do that. If you do it just to remind yourself, it's perfectly correct, but it's implied if you don't have a sign in front of it that it is positive. Okay, easy peasy. Okay, so hopefully this is all just a review from grade 8 and you feel kind of comfortable with this. When we subtract two numbers, we can change the subtraction sign to an addition sign and change the sign of the second. And I call this, I don't know if you've heard that before, add the opposite. So we don't want to deal with a subtraction question. We change it to a positive. So I'd rewrite this. Brand new pen, sorry. 8, change that to an add, but if we change it to an add, we have to change the sign on the second one. So this would become a positive 13. So we add the opposite sign. That's how I like to do it. Again, you don't need that plus in there because it's implied, but I just like to put it to remind myself that that's what I'm doing. And now it's just a straight addition question that we can use from before. So we're going to have 8 plus a positive 13. I'm going to do that one in my head. And that's 21. And again, if you want to stack it, 3 plus 8 is 11. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. All right, so this one. Negative 12.2 subtract negative 15.1. So we're going to add the opposite. We change this to an add, and we change the sign of the second one. Whether it was positive, we change it to a negative. If it was positive, we change it to a negative. So we've got negative 12.2 plus 15.1. So we're going to use our rules from above. Which one's further away from 0? The 15, and that one's positive, so my answer will be positive. Now I'm just going to subtract these two numbers. So I can't take 2 away from 1, so I'm going to borrow. So my answer is going to be a positive 2.9. And I'm moving pretty quick through the add, subtract stuff. If you don't feel comfortable with that, please feel free to use your calculator. And you'll get the right answers too. But like I said, the more we know about numbers, the better we're going to be and the faster we're going to get to go in the end. All right, is everybody good with that? Did you get that copy down? Sorry, I was going to flip the page. Sometimes I go too fast, so. All right, I'm going to flip now. Okay, adding and subtracting proper and improper fractions. We talked a little bit about improper fractions Friday. An example of an improper fraction would be like 8/3, where your numerator is larger than your denominator. That's an improper fraction. Okay, fractions, people don't like them because there's extra steps to do with them. But they're not bad if you guys get good at them, and the only way to get good at them is to practice. We need to make sure before we do any adding or subtracting, we have common denominators. I think we did this on Friday too. You're going to use common denominators a lot in your future math courses, so it's good to practice them now. So what number does 6 and 8 both divide evenly into? It's the very first number that they share. Sorry, what did somebody say? I think somebody had it, I just didn't quite hear it. How about 24? So do you guys know your factors of 6? Right? So if I want to figure this out, 6, so the first one is 6. If I times that by 2, it's 12, then 18, then 24, then 36, right? And if we do 8, it'd be 8, and if we double it, that would be 16. If we triple it, it would be 24, and then 32, and then 40. I missed one there. This should be 30. Sorry, I skipped one. So what number do they both share when I talk about common denominators? The first number I see that they share in their list is a 24. So my common denominator is 24. We want to get the lowest common denominator, but regular common denominators work too. So what do I have to multiply 6 by to get it to go to 24? What do I have to multiply 6 by to get it to 24? 4. All right, so I'm going to go 1/6. And when we times the bottom by 4, we have to times the top by 4. That doesn't change because that way the fraction doesn't change value. It just changes the way it looks. And then if we look at if we look at 8, what do we have to multiply 8 by to get it to 24? 3. Perfect. So we'd have 5/8 times the bottom by 3 times the top by 3. And those two things were added. All right, so we're going to have 4/24 plus 15/24. Whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do the top. And the reason why we do that is it doesn't change the value. If I grab my handy dandy calculator and I put, oh, that's really hard to see. Sorry, I'll go down here. If I go 5 divided by 8, I get a decimal of 6.25. Or if I go 15 divided by 24, I'm going to get that exact same decimal. So it just changes the way it looks. It doesn't change its value. And that's why it's really important to do both top and bottom. And if you're coming along to the applied or pre-cal stream, we're going to start doing this with letters. Yeah, algebra with that. But don't worry, that's a grade 11 thing. You got a few years. Okay, once both fractions have a common denominator, you simply add or subtract just the numerator. just that numerator. You worked so hard to find the denominator, you keep it. And this was an add question, so 4 plus 15 is 19 over 24. All right. So, differences. We're going to do the same thing, finding the common denominator, and then we're just going to subtract the numerators. Super easy. So if I do my list of 4s, I got 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. I'm going to stop there. And then I go to 5, 10, 15, 20. Oh, I see it already. So the one that they get to first together is 20. If you see the common denominators and you can do it without doing the list, don't do them. I'm just trying to show you how I get to that common denominator. It's whatever makes most sense to you. You guys are all at different places on how comfortable you feel about things. So just because your friend you're sitting next to doesn't need the list, if the list helps you, please use it. If you're like, no big deal, I'm going to times 4 by 5 and get 20. It's easy peasy. That's how I did it. That's how my, grade 7 or grade 8 teacher. Totally go ahead and do that. So in order to get 4 to turn into 20, I have to multiply it by 5. And I'm going to times the numerator by 5 as well. And notice this time, last time I used, let's scroll back up here real quick, I used the X to indicate multiplying. And now in this question, I'm using brackets, just two different ways to show it. And again, it's what's most comfortable for you, what you feel most comfortable with. I think that's my favorite thing that I love about math, is that there's so many different ways to show it. So 5 times 7 is 35 over 20. And then minus 12 over 20. You've worked so hard to find that denominator, we're going to keep it. And then we just subtract the numerators here. And that should give me 23 over 20. And normally, ladies and gentlemen, we work down the page. I just ran out of room. So really, if this was on my work that I'm handing in for homework, it should work down the page. And notice that I have no equal signs. The reason why I have no equal signs is because in the first step, there was no equal sign given. So the next line is just a simplified version of this, and then a simplified version of this. You don't add equal signs in unless there's one in the question. So we work down the page, not across. That's something, this is kind of math grammar, and we'll get better at it as we practice. Okay, so example number 3. When we're subtracting, we use the same rules as we did for integers or decimals. We're going to add the opposite sign. I'm going to do that right away just so I don't forget. Okay, 5 and 9. Does anybody know the common denominator right off the top of their head? 45. Yes. Just multiplying these two numbers together can give you a common denominator. Might not be the lowest one, but it is a common denominator. In this case, it is the lowest one. 45 is the first time they match. So I'm going to times this side by 9 over 9, and this side by 5 over 5. So I have 9 over 45, add 20 over 45, because I add the opposite sign. And so my answer will be 29 over 45. Okay, common denominators. Kind of a pain in the butt, but they're super useful. And the more comfortable you get with fractions, the less big of a deal it is to use them. Okay, Adding and subtracting mixed fractions. So I'm trying to get that whole sentence on the page and I can't. To add and subtract mixed fractions, we need to be able to convert them into improper fractions. So to convert a mixed to improper, we're going to follow these steps. Oh, sorry, I have those in the wrong order. To convert, let's try this. To convert an improper to a mix, sorry guys, I got those in the wrong order. We're going to follow these steps. We're going to divide the numerator by the denominator. We might want to use our calculator for this one to make it go faster. If you know what the whole number is, that's cool too. Write down the whole number and then write down any remainder above the denominator. Whew, that one was tough. We'll practice that because that seems a little bit confusing. So we're just going to flip the page. All right, so I'm going to get my handy dandy calculator out. Got to turn it on again. And so it told me to divide the numerator by the denominator. So 11 divided by 4. Oh. All right. So we're going to copy down that 2. Now it gives us 0.75 and then it would be over a denominator of, because we'd convert that, so that would be 75 over 100, but that seems like a really big fraction that I don't want to deal with. So let me just show you a quicker way. We're going to keep that 2. And what's 4 times 2? Can you guys do that? 8, hopefully. 4 times 2 is 8. And if you take 11 minus the 8, because those 8 pieces go into that 2 hole, you get 3. So it would be 3 over 4. All right. So now we're going to do a mixed to an improper. So just so you guys remember, this is an improper. And this is a mixed. So the mixed has whole numbers in it. That's why it's called mixed. So multiply the whole number part by the fraction's denominator and add that to the numerator. It's kind of like working backwards of what we just did. So this is how we're going to do it here. So we're going to multiply the whole number part by the denominator. So 3 times 5 gives me 15. And then we're going to add that to the numerator. So we're going to have 2 plus 15 should give me 17. And we write that on top of the denominator. So 17 over 5. That's my mixed. Are you guys okay with the pink pen? Can you see that okay? All right. You can tell me if you don't. Like sometimes I pick pens that I can see fine. All right. So the easiest way I think to do adding and subtracting mixed numbers is that we convert them always to improper first and then find a common denominator and add or subtract the fraction. Okay, so here we go. We're going to leave the negative off just for a second while we convert it. So let's see if we can do it without writing the steps down. Let's see if we can do it verbally. And if you don't like it, if you don't like doing that, then we can go back to writing down the steps if that's easier for you. So we're going to leave that negative off for a second. What's 2 times 4? 8. 8 plus 3? 11. Good job, good job. And because there was a negative there, we're going to put that on the top. Negative 11 over 4. And so we did that just verbally. We just kind of walked ourselves through the steps verbally. So let's try it again. So we're going to be adding this one. So 3 times 2, 6. 6 plus 1, 7. So that's going to be a positive 7 over 2. That negative there means that this whole fraction here is negative. So that's why I just kind of ignored it for a second, and then I added it on in the end. I kind of just put it on a shelf for a minute. Okay, so now I need a common denominator. What's the common denominator between 2 and 4? 4. So this one's already at 4, so do I need to multiply it by anything? No. I just need to multiply this one. So this one's going to be 2 and 2, so I'm going to have negative 11 over 4 plus 14 over 4. I have to do that first before I decide which number is further away from 0. I have to get common denominators before I decide which one's further away from 0. So is my answer going to be positive or is it going to be negative? Is 14 further away from 0 or is negative 11 further away from 0? 14. So my answer is going to be positive. So I always like to write that down right away. And then all I have to do is subtract these two. So 14 minus 11. Getting you to do some mental math here. 3. And it's going to be a positive 3. And we keep that denominator of 4. Okay. Now that looks really ugly, but it wasn't too bad as we walk through it. So let's do this one. First thing we're going to do is we're going to convert them into improper. I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to do that. If you guys can convert them into improper. Can I show you what I got? That's what I got for improper. Did you guys get those for improper? And if you didn't try, that's okay too, but you need to practice. Like I said, math is not something you can just watch and get better at. You got to try it. So 5 times 3 is 15. 15 plus 2 is my 17. And then 6 times 5 is 30. 30 plus 1 is 31. Okay. Common denominator. 30. So that means I have to multiply this side by 6, both top and bottom, and this side by 5. All right, 17 times 6. Oof. That seems like a lot. So I'm going to use my handy dandy calculator because I don't know that right off the top of my head. Ooh, 102 over 30. 31 times 5, I probably could have done that one in my head. 155 over 30. Now, this is still a subtraction question, and we didn't want to do subtraction. We wanted to add the opposite. So we're going to change that to an add. This one was positive, so I'm going to change it to a negative. So now, which one is further away from 0? 155 or 102? 155. So I know my answer is going to be negative. I know my answer is going to be negative. And if I take 155 and subtract 102 from it, hopefully I get 53. If I did my mental math right, because those hundreds go away, and then 55 minus 2 is just 53. So negative 53 over 30. And again, I'm just running out of room, so I move over there. All right. So you guys have a bit of homework to do, or not homework. Well, it will be homework. We have about a half an hour left of class. So you can use that time